Dear Dave, I intended to write to you before now, but I was so glad to hear from you on the telephone, and I waited until Margaret came out to help me decide what we could remember of Wolcott. And I will give you of the things we remember. Maybe I better see. My dad, your great-grandfather, Frank Gorman, in Shanahan on November the 14th, 1858, where at the age of 17 he taught school for a couple of years. He then joined a surveying firm and was sent to northern Michigan, where he met my mother, Katie Schoffen, Schoffen. Katie was born in Kenosha, Wisconsin on November 15th, 1863, where she lived until she was 18. She then moved with her folks to Ironton, Michigan, near East Jordan. There she met my father, who was surveying, and after he left there, they corresponded. The winters were very cold. Okay, I'm going to turn back, see if I'm getting it. Michigan. One day, her father went to the next town on business. He must have anticipated an approaching storm and decided to get home ahead of it. So he took a shortcut across the frozen lake. The blizzard hit, and apparently he lost his way. Because of it, he never reached home, although he was in sight of it when they found his frozen body the next morning. I just found a letter from my mother to my dad, dated January the 10th, 1886. It was in my father's prayer book. You could see how much he prayed, as the prayer book showed so much use. Telling of her father's death. To backtrack about your great-grandfather, he was born in Germany and studied for the priesthood. He was about to be ordained when he took sick. The doctor said it was incurable, so his parents sent him to his uncle in America, hoping this sea voyage would help him. Here he met my grandmother, Margaret Daniels, and they were married. He was a very well-educated man and a devout Catholic, and also was Margaret Daniels. Continuing on, after the uncertain timely death of her father, Kate, at the age of 19 or 20, went to Chicago, got herself a job and an apartment, and sent for the family. That is how they came to be Chicagoans, where she continued to correspond with my dad. In the meantime, Dad went to Denver, where he worked as a clerk in a hotel. He earned $6 a week and saved 3 of the 6. He met a man named Harry Black, and they decided to go into business together. They took a train the Denver and Rio Grande, which originates in Denver, and rode until they came to where the stagecoach picked up train passengers who wanted to go to Steamboat Springs and other places in that direction. They got off the train at Wolcott and put their sleeping bag on a spot where later they built the Eagle River Mercantile and Forwarding Company about 1884. The store was built a little up the...
Some. I didn't think I could hold it any longer.
Let me do that.
You got to press it awfully, awfully hard.
Well, I'll see if I can do it.
Oh, it's still on.
Go ahead.
I don't know where it is.
Well,
You have to hold it.
from the depot, and it stays south. I understand the rains have formed a gully either right in front of our store or on the spot where the store stood. I am not sure of this. Our store carried just about everything you could think of, from fabrics, staple foods, and no fresh vegetables or meat, except ham or smoked sausage, hardware, mining equipment, saddles, and the like. You think of something and we had it. I remember my dad grub staking a miner once, but was never reimbursed for it. So few ever struck it rich either in gold or silver, which was what most were after. Harry Black pulled out of the business after a few years, and Dad had it alone at the time. He and Mother were married in 1890. Dad and Mother corresponded for 7 years and were married February 17th, 1890. Whenever she asked him about the town, all he would say was all the houses in the town were painted white. He was so right. The only two buildings in the town were the store and the hotel, and they were both painted white. It was an overnight ride from Chicago to Denver, and how many hours from Denver to Wolcott at that time, I don't know. I know it went slow through the Royal Gorge. Mother and Dad arrived in Wolcott after dark, and when she stepped off the train, which was in the last coach, her feet sank into the mud. She could hardly walk from there. They went to the hotel, which had a few bedrooms upstairs, and that is where they slept all night. Downstairs, there was a kitchen, dining room, and a bar. The proprietor had a dinner all ready for them, and outside, the cowboys were shivering them, yelling and shooting their guns. They rode around the hotel until Dad brought them in to meet his bride and offer them a drink to toast the bride. Mother was very frightened. See it later? The red light is up here. Is it on? Yeah. Hello, Dave. This is Aunt Margaret.
I'll just...
For a minute while Winnie's looking up some more things. After Mother and Father stayed at the hotel the first night they were there, the next day they moved into the building that the store was. Upstairs in the store they had like a little apartment.
your hand is on the speaker.
Oh, I had it up like this. I didn't have it down. It's all right.
Well, turn it around the other way, and then you won't have to do that.
Yeah, but then I have to use this hand. Well, I'll do it this
Even
way.
if you turn it around?
I can't do it like that.
Why?
Look at my hand.
Oh, well, I didn't
Well,
want
I'll do
your
it like
speaker in
this.
the way.
All right.
Say that dresser or something that my dad had fixed up for himself. And they stayed up there until it was time to until they could get together and build a house. It was so cold there in the wintertime that Mama said that if they put a glass of water alongside of the bed, they couldn't drink it in the night because it became ice. So that is the condition that they slept under at first. Mighty healthy, I imagine. Following their staying up there, they built the house next door to the store, facing the same direction as the store, south. And that's where they lived for the rest of the time that they were there. After a year or two, Dad needed more help in the business, so he wrote to Shanahan for his two brothers. One brother was called Anthony, but his nickname was Doc. We never knew him as Anthony. It was always Uncle Doc. And also Jerry was his other brother. So he offered them an interest in the business if they would come out and help, because he figured it was better to have family in the business that would help, and with an interest in the business, why they would really work better. So then it became the three Gorman brothers there working in the business. We had horses and wagons and everything necessary for survival in that part of the country, as well as for business. That's Harry and Vivette and your father, France, were the first three born there. They weren't, Harry wasn't born in, he came to Chicago to be born, as did your father, France. But Vivette was the only one who was born out there because she came in September and they didn't get away in time. Mother's sister, Anna, came out at the time that Vivette was born and stayed there for a little while visiting. And in the meantime, a school was built just a short distance from the house, not too far away. That was also painted white, as was the house. You asked if we had animals. There was a corral there. I'm not sure just where the corral was located, but that was for the men who drove the cattle in to ship to Denver. But we had a very small corral right at our house where we kept our horses, and we had a dog. That's about the only animals we had. And you asked about sheep. Well, this was cattle country, and nobody ever had sheep in this country. Sheep, when they would graze, they ate the grass so close that the cattle couldn't graze after the sheep. So there was always a battle between the sheep and the cattlemen. I remember my story about one time some sheep herder decided to drive his sheep through the cattle country and get on the train there at the Rio Grande at Wolcott. And they were warned not to bring the sheep through because it was cattle country, but they ignored the warning. And all I know is what I heard, that 2,000 sheep went over the cliff one day and nobody knew who sent them over, and no more sheep ever came through that part of the country. My mother was a dressmaker, but as far as I know, she didn't make anything for the store. People in that part of the country did their own sewing. One time, the only sewing that she did for anyone else, one time a man's wife died, and my dad and my mother went out to see if they could help him. He had a lean-to, that is, a house that was hewn out of the side of the hill with only boards in front of it to keep the snow and the wind out. and nothing on the floor except boards that you walked across so that you wouldn't walk in the mud. And the woman died. My father said the man told him that she never had very much before she married him, and they all wondered what she could possibly have had before, because this was about the worst. However, her children were all sewn in their clothes for the winter, and by that time, and it was winter, by that time they were pretty dirty, so Mother took them all up to the house and gave them a bath, took their clothes and burnt them, and made them all clothes that she couldn't get out of the store. The underwear she got out of the store, but the rest of the clothes she made for them. That was about the extent of sewing that she did for anyone else. The first year or two that Mother was there, she had Dad go, for Christmas, she had Dad go out and get a pine tree. Then she had sent to Chicago for trimmings. So when the trimmings came, why, she trimmed the tree, and everybody around came to see the tree. There were people living in the section house. That's the house that takes care of the railroad. The men have to work on the railroad, have what they call a section house. And this family lived in the section house. And they came to see the tree and were so delighted with it, they asked Mother if they could have the tree when she was finished with it. So she said yes. So when she was finished with it, they took the tree, trimming and all, down to their place. And in July, the tree was still standing there with the trimming on, but not one needle left. That's how much they enjoyed that tree. The schoolhouse was one room with the 8 grades in the one room. The teacher, one of the teachers, I should say, was May Ashbrook, and she boarded at our house. Well, all the teachers boarded at our house, but this one teacher, May Ashbrook, boarded at our house and finally married Jerry, my father's brother. I neglected to say that after the schoolhouse was built, on the other side of the store was built a post office and a blacksmith shop. The train station, you spoke about a Fred Harvey restaurant. The train station was only a small station. There was no such thing as a Harvey restaurant. The people who came through that part of the country always had their foodstuffs with them. You asked about bank robbers. The only excitement I think we had in town one time was when Jesse James, under handcuffs, came through with the sheriff and was at our station for a little while waiting for the train to go down to Denver. That's as near as we came to any bank robbers or robbers of any type. The people out there were very, very wholesome people. And the ranchers were not very many because the ranches were large. The Welches had a ranch up the hill, and Mrs. Welch, when she came to...
Well, I thought maybe you were retired.
Oh, no, now I have to, you'll have to backtrack a little bit. I don't know where we left off.
Well, just keep on going.
Okay, but there's there's a space there.
She always came on a white horse, riding side saddle, with a velvet outfit on, where the skirt practically trailed as she rode, with a white plume in her hat. She looked almost like a circus rider, but she was just too lovely for anything like that. You asked what the activity was during the daytime. I guess going for a walk was the most important. One day, Mother and Dad on a Sunday walked down the tracks. The tracks at that time were not located where they were when you were out there in '79, because the tracks were on the other side of the river and they followed the mountain around the bend. If you can visualize how that was, you'll see that the train coming around the bend could not see ahead of it at all, because it was almost a right angle curve there. So one day Dad and Mother were taking a walk down the tracks, and a boulder had come down off the top of the mountain on the tracks, and a train would never have seen it because of the bend. So they walked ahead and flagged the train, and they got accommodation from the railroad company for saving the train, which would have gone in the river had it hit that boulder. Uncle Harry, that was the oldest one of the family, got a BB gun for a present, and my dad was going to show him how to use it. My dad was holding the hand of your grandfather as they were walking up the mountainside, and Harry was trailing behind with his BB gun, and he shot off the BB gun and hit France in the pants. France jumped, and Harry never forgave France for jumping because his gun was taken away from him as a result of that little episode. My father was a very even-tempered man and never lost his temper about anything. The only time we can remember him really getting his temper up was when Harry went down to the river, and he was a little fellow, probably around 4 or 5 years old, and he got a paddling. Every step he took up the hill, he got a paddle with it in the seat. I guess he never went down to the river again. You asked about the water. We got all our drinking water from the river. Uncle Doc used to take the wagon down there with barrels and fill the barrels with water from the river and bring them up. And that was our drinking water and water for all uses. That river was a fast-flowing river, and the water was so clear that you could see the bottom of the river very easily. And Doc also was a marvelous fisherman. On Friday, he went out and he always brought a mess of fishes in, even though others tried so hard and couldn't bring them in. He knew how to do it. As far as church was concerned, their priests used to come through the town. Church have services at our house. That was as near to as we got to a church. But the priest who came through when Aunt Bet was born loved the name Vivette, and he is the one who named her. Mother wanted her named Anna because of her sister Anna, and the priest wanted Vivette, and he always said, "I baptize you, Anna Vivette." And that was the way he said it, and they always laughed about that. Mother had a washing machine, which was hand-operated, and there was always a couple of men around to operate the machine for her when it came time for washing. So her wash days weren't too bad on that account. Speaking of miners in the town, one man, his wife used to come and help Mom with the washing. His wife was lucky enough to get a sewing machine when he struck a little bit of gold. Whether he struck a gold mine or what he struck, anyway, he sold it out to some wiseacre. And the amount of money he got, he bought his wife a sewing machine and a washing machine, and she was thrilled to death. Well, as a result of all the money, he drank every bit of money away that he had. Next, he sold her washing machine and drank that money. Then he sold her sewing machine and drank that money. And Mother said to her, "Don't you feel terrible about losing all your things with his drinking?" And she said, "Oh, no, I'm only glad that he won't be able to drink anymore because he was killing himself drinking." The Moffat Road was built to go over Steamboat Springs Way, and it was a very expensive operation. They had to put it through a terrific tunnel. However, the building of that Moffat Road cut off so much of our territory that there was no use in continuing with the business, and that is why the business was discontinued, and it was about the year 1904 or 5 or maybe 6. I'm not sure about the time. Dad then came to Chicago and started a business in Pullman, Illinois. Pullman was a place that built the Pullman cars, and the company had everybody who worked for them live in company houses and buy from company stores on script. Nobody ever handled the money. So the government judged that to be illegal, and they had to start issuing money instead of script to the people. So the stores, then naturally the people started going to other stores, and that's when Dad started his store there in Pullman, which was a great success. We moved into our present home in 1915, and Dad died the following year, November 17, 1916. He was 57 years old at the time. Then rewind.
What happened?
Stop it and then start it again.
In going back over your tape, I find a few questions I may not have answered. One, you wanted to know how many trains went through Wolcott in a day. Two, one going and one coming. And Mother said that whenever the one was going east, she wanted to be on it. She was so lonesome out there. As far as our traveling was concerned, it was between Denver and Chicago that we did most of the traveling. There's a cute story about a man who lived up there. His name was Eben Evan, or a name similar to that. He was with a delightful English accent. He always dressed like the wrath of the gods and didn't care how he looked. One day he was down at the train station, and Dad said to him, "Where are you going, Eben?" And he said, "Well, I'm going down to Denver." And Dad said, "You're going to Denver looking like that?" He said, "What's the use? Nobody knows me." The next couple of days, Dad went down to the depot, and here was Eben waiting for a train. He said to Eben, "Where are you going now?" Well, he said, "I'm going down to Eagle." Dad said, "You're going down to Eagle looking like that?" He said, "What's the use? Everybody knows me." So we always said, everybody knows you or nobody knows you, so you can dress just the way you feel. The pictures you sent were very interesting, but we knew none of those people who were on there. As a matter of fact, Winnie and I, well, even Vivette wouldn't have recognized any of them because we were all pretty young. You see, Vivette was 13 when we finally pulled out of there. And so that made me 9 and Winnie 7. So at that age, we wouldn't remember very many of those people. The people who were in the ranches, who used to come into town, we probably knew at the time, but wouldn't know now anymore. As far as the bank is concerned, I don't know what my dad did about the banking. I know they had a safe in the store somewhere. But as far as the banking, I don't know where they did their banking or how it was done. Well, this is about all that Winnie or I can think of. And it's such a pleasure to talk to you this way that we would love to do it again sometime. If we ever think of anything else and can successfully do it, we'll send you another tape. But right now, we can't think of a thing outside of what we have recorded. But hope that you have a wonderful time out there. It's that section of the country is absolutely beautiful. I think that Grand Canyon is something that's so breathtaking that it's wonderful to spend any time there. I can appreciate all the things that you're doing. And I'll say goodbye for now, and here's Winnie. Well, Dave, I guess that's about all we know of Wolcott. And anything else has slipped our mind. So, with that, we'll be glad to hear from you again. And I will get this off in the mail as soon as possible.